Hey, y'all. I'm so excited for y'all to meet Elizabeth Parsons if you don't know her already. And I remember a few years back, I posted a picture of Elizabeth and I, and y'all like flooded my DMs. Like, how do you know Elizabeth? Like, what in the world? It really is so small. But Elizabeth and I, we actually lived in the same neighborhood, literally streets apart for a while. And is that how we met? In the neighborhood?
Yeah, you guys did your caroling in the neighborhood, and then y'all did like an outreach, and we had just moved to Texas like 6 months before that, and we came to your house for your little like neighborhood outreach,
Yes.
and then yeah, we just kind of connected. Then you were obviously in a very different season of life, but I remember you bringing me coffee to my house and coming over and like hanging out with me in my backyard while I pushed my kids around on the swing, and you just hung out, and then yeah, that's how we met.
So funny. I remember that I was thinking about that today and I was like, life was so different because I was like completely single and you had kids
Yeah.
and I wasn't like very good at hanging out with like moms with kids. Even though I had a lot of siblings, I like didn't know exactly. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish, like I wish I could have been like somewhat in the same season of you so I could have like connected or related more. But I was just like completely different. But I'm so glad that we connected. And obviously I've
Yeah.
shared a bunch of your stuff on Instagram, but there may be some people that don't know you. So just share like what is it that you do and why do people follow Elizabeth Parsons and your Purely Parsons brand?
Yeah, for sure. So I started sharing kind of like more publicly in 2019. And it kind of coincided with some health stuff that my husband was walking through with autoimmune disease. And I, my whole like kind of evolution into like natural health was very slow and just kind of unlearning a lot of things that I had learned in nursing school and just as my husband did more research into how to heal naturally, it was just kind of like an evolving
Hmm.
time frame. And so um, that was kind of like the platform that I had was just kind of sharing like how we handle different things. I had young kids. I was kind of a big part of the medical freedom movement. I'm
Mhm.
very passionate about medical freedom, and that was obviously like a big topic in 2019. And who even knew like what was
Yeah,
coming in
no,
2020?
seriously.
But so yeah, I just kind of started sharing like, hey, this is how I treat ear infections if my kids get them. This is how I treat whatever it was, and just kind of started sharing in my free time. I was still working part time as a nurse at the Children's Hospital in San Antonio, and it was just kind of like a side hobby that
Yeah.
just kind of started growing. And then I had a lot of people asking me if I could send them elderberry syrup. That was something I had talked about a
Right.
lot. Yeah, and so I sold it to people locally, but I was like, "There's no way I'm sending, like, a full jar of elderberry syrup," I don't know how to do that, I wasn't, like, a business person, and
Yeah.
so I was like, "But I could probably, like, do the dry ingredients and just, like, send it to you, and you can just make it yourself," and so that's kind of how Purely Parsons, like, the business side of it was born. That started very slow, and that was all it was for like 3 years, really,
Wow.
until my husband ended up, um, he was an engineer, and he ended up leaving his engineering job to come and be a part like, we worked together, and we've expanded a lot since then.
Uh-huh.
So we have about 20 products now.
That's
We're still
crazy.
I know, we're still very, very small, a very small business, family business, but it's so fun, it's so much work, and, but we're so blessed we were able to actually relocate because of it, because we have freedom, we're not bound by a location.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it was just kind of like the two of those things together, sharing about natural remedies and just holistic living and healing and how that looked for us and homesteading, and then also growing our business at the same time.
Mm.
So,
Mhm. So with that, like COVID hitting kind of like right after
yeah.
really launched and we're starting to talk about medical freedom and just everything that social media doesn't like, when they try to
Yeah,
press
they do
and
not.
people are, desperate for that information. And
Mhm.
obviously during COVID, that being like a super hot topic, was it, were there specific topics that became like hot button issues that were controversial that kind of like almost gave you this like running start? Or was it just positive remedies? I guess, was there something that went viral that kind of caught on that people were like, oh my goodness, I'm following Purely Parsons? I'm just curious.
Um, no, there wasn't anything that was like that went like viral, but it was mainly like talking about the topic of vaccines. And
Yes.
before 2020, it was childhood vaccines, because I feel like a lot of parents, they trust their doctors, they trust
Yeah.
their medical providers. They go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "This is what we're doing today," and then they say, "Okay," and then, and so it was kind of just like me speaking out. And I think just as a pediatric nurse, especially,
Yeah.
people don't really hear medical professionals
Yeah.
like saying like, "Hey, research," like
Mhm.
I'm never one to tell you what to do with your own child, but like, you know, you should be researching it just as much as you're researching anything else that you're doing for
For
your
sure.
child. And so that was kind of like the first start of it. And then obviously 2020 came along, and it was just absolutely crazy. And I was pregnant, and we had moved out of San Antonio to some land. And then I ended up having twins, surprise twins, at home. It was a planned home birth, midwife care all the way through, but we didn't know that there was twins. And so
And you had how many kids at that point? So you already had
we had three. And
okay.
so we jumped from 3 to 5 pretty quickly there.
Oh my gosh.
And that kind of like, I guess if you can say, like, went viral, like, you
Oh,
don't hear
yeah,
about
yeah,
that very often
exactly. I
anymore.
remember that.
So yeah. But at that point I had grown a little bit of an online
Yeah.
presence. And then it just kind of catapulted that for a certain time.
Yeah, I bet, which is another point of connection for Elizabeth and I is that we use the same
Oh
midwife.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I
That's right.
for well, Davy and Audrey, and then you for your surprise twins. And so I
Yeah.
was I don't know. I guess I started seeing her again shortly after that because of Audrey. I don't know, whatever. But I remember we would talk about it because I knew you and you had texted me about
Yeah.
it. And so our midwife, like, she was just like, oh my goodness, love to talk all about your
Oh, I'm
story with
sure.
me and stuff.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have 5 kids, and
We have
obviously you
6.
have had 6. Well, yeah, then you had another since
Yes.
then. Okay,
Yeah.
so how did you manage like your business? I guess that it kind of was like a hobby almost. It starts to turn into this
Mhm.
business. You have all these amazing children that God's blessed you with. How did you
Yeah.
like manage that mentally, emotionally, like physically, like raising these children, and now you are having this business kind of just explode, and you have this platform, and just the details of keeping up with that shipping. How in the world did you do that? Because we see people like you, and you're kind of like behind the scenes, and you see a woman, and you're like, okay, Elizabeth Parsons, like, what is this? How does this actually work? Because, I have 2 kids and I feel like I'm barely surviving, so give us the
Yeah.
inside scoop of how that works.
Yeah. So when I first started doing elderberry kits, it was like nothing exploded overnight. It was a very gradual, when I first launched them, I had like maybe 20 people that ordered
Yeah.
them. And so, that's grown over time. So it was never like all at once. Like
Okay.
we've never done the volume,
Yeah.
it wasn't overnight. And so I remember coming home a lot of days from working. I worked just on Saturdays at the
Okay.
hospital so that my husband could stay home and watch the kids so that we didn't have to have like a nanny
Yeah.
come. And I remember some nights coming home from working at the hospital and then packaging up elderberry kits to send out. And so it was just kind of like, doing things like that in the cracks of being a mom
Mhm.
and working like very part-time. But my kids were still very young. And so I just want to like speak life into that season because it's so fun to have young kids. And I look back on that time with such nostalgia and just like, they're just so, I mean, they're not, I don't want to say easy. It's not easy at any point, but like, it's so fun. They're so little and just like, just being home and being all together. And it's just a lot simpler, I guess, is what I'm saying. And so, um, anyway, and then, yeah, we just kind of, you know, as it grew, we had moved out of San Antonio, and then my husband was like, "You need to get somebody
Yeah.
to help you," because it did become, too much for me to handle by myself, and he was still working, a
Yeah.
9 to 5 job, and so I found somebody local that ended up coming like a couple days a week to help me actually make the elderberry
Oh,
kits and
wow.
helped with shipping. I think I was actually still doing all of the shipping at that point. So she was our girl for a little while, and then we moved again to
Yeah.
get closer to the church that we were going to, and so I had to find somebody else to help, and so help would be like the main answer to that, I guess. It's not just me
Mhm.
doing it, especially now. My husband is a huge part of
Yeah.
our business. And, husbands, they often don't get seen, they don't get the
Yeah.
credit that they deserve. But like, literally, like, I would still just be doing elderberry kits if it wasn't
Yeah.
for Noah. Like, he just like pushes my thinking and just my, I don't know, like, I just would never think like, "Oh, yeah, let's come out with our own diffuser blends." Like, I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
"What?" Like, like, so we launched in 20, let's see, I'm trying to get my dates right. He came home in 2022, August of 2022. We launched like 4 or 5 new products in
Wow.
that fall. So, like, we added like a detox bath kit, a facial serum, some natural fragrances, and then, last fall, so fall of 2023, we launched like essential oils,
Yeah.
a hair serum, diffuser blends. So it was very gradual. It wasn't all overnight. It didn't explode.
Yeah.
And it's just hard work, like
Yeah.
grinding, and also we don't have family support.
Yeah.
And so everything that we've done has been either us doing it
Mhm.
or us hiring help, whether that's with our shop or with our kids. We have to seek out help when we need it, and just kind of it is a balance for sure. Being able to have your own business that you're running, and also raising young children. So
Mhm. Mhm. So when it comes to like I guess you started out in some ways kind of a little bit more of like an influencer promoting other people's health and wellness products.
yeah.
And then it seems like there was a transition to creating and selling your own. So what made y'all decide to want to stop promoting other people's products to then create and sell your own brand?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's not that I don't still do that. There are a few specific brands that I do still work with, because I use them in my own home and I love them, and that just makes sense. But for us, it was like, why am I spending time and energy and resources on other people's business to
Mhm.
promote their own business? Why can't we should be promoting, we should be
Yes.
putting that time and energy into building something for ourselves, because at the end of the day, those businesses can go away. They
Mhm.
get, most of the profit. Like, you do the work for them. And so we were
Yes.
like, my husband was like, why wouldn't we just like put the work into our own
Mm.
business and try and build something, that can last longer than just, an affiliate.
Mhm.
And so that was the main reason we left. We were pretty high up in an MLM at, that point, like 2020 to 2022, and left that, like,
Wow.
gave all of that up, and just really started to dream together. And like,
Mm.
I remember walking. It was our anniversary. We had gone on a hike. This is before we had the twins, I think. I don't know. This is after we had the twins. We had already moved to Bernie. But Noah and I went on a hike, and we were just like talking about, what do we feel like the next like 5 to 10 years looks like,
Mhm.
for us as a family, for us as a business. And just like so many of the things that we had talked about have like kind of started to either like be here now, like be a reality, or like we're working towards it. And it's really, really, really cool. We're just so thankful. Obviously, like, it's not nothing of ourselves. Like, all the glory to God. Like, He gives and He can take away. And I know that like my platform could be gone tomorrow. And so that was kind of another reason too, is
Yeah.
because I do talk about things that are a little bit more like controversial
Yeah.
and, not popular with the with
Yeah.
the whatever internet.
The higher ups.
Yeah. And so, there were people that were getting deplatformed, and we were like, we
Yes.
need to create something steady that it can't just like poof disappear overnight,
Yeah.
because that is the reality. Like, if you have an
Yeah.
Instagram following, like, you don't own those followers. Like,
Yeah.
they could be gone overnight. And
Mhm.
so, that was another thing we just wanted to like make sure that we were being smart. So,
Yeah. So how do
yeah.
you like trust the Lord with that? Because obviously Instagram still brings in a lot of traffic for you. And now that
Yeah.
you and your husband are in it together, how do you, it's like your livelihood now. So how do
Mhm.
you practically like trust God for your future, for your finances, for your family, knowing like, hey, this is like all our eggs are in this basket in a way. Obviously, Instagram isn't the only thing, and you are establishing your own, purely Parsons .com and just your own, your own community outside of that with your own email list. But it can feel so scary when you're like, okay, if this went away, what would happen? So just, for a woman who's just struggling with trust, whether it's something like that or something completely different, as a Christian woman yourself, what does trusting the Lord look like on a daily basis for you?
I think it's just having that peace that surpasses understanding, like the Lord will take care of us. And we trust that. We believe in that. We know that his word is true. And we obviously use common sense. All of our eggs aren't in one basket. We aren't
Yeah.
just solely in one place financially, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like he can take it all away, and
Yeah.
he's still good.
Mhm.
And there's a quote, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like, but even if not, he is still good, or something like that. And so that can apply to any like situation in life. I feel like, health wise,
Yeah.
that was something that I really clung to. Um, there was another sermon that I had listened to like years ago, and we had no idea that Noah was going to go on this like autoimmune journey, that it was talking about when Christ was on the sea with the disciples. But one thing I had written in my like notebook, it was like, with Christ in the boat, we can smile through the storm.
Mm.
And so the storms of life are going to come.
Mm.
Like, we're guaranteed to have trials. The word says, if the world uh, hates you, it hated me first. And so like, we're going to have trials. We're going to have people who are out to just tear us down, and people don't like us simply because we have 6 kids and we're Christians. Like, that is a whole niche in itself of like people that hate you.
Yeah.
And so, like, he is good, and we will take whatever he gives, and whatever he takes away, like, for his glory. Like, again, like, it's not of ourselves. We didn't do this. Like, this was not something that we built, that I
Mm.
think that's something that, and even I struggle with this, and it's something that I'm learning just through this whole experience of being online,
Yeah.
because it can quickly become something that you feel like propped up by,
Yeah.
and like, oh, I have this platform, I have this following, like, just true humility, and like humbling yourself, and really realizing like where your success comes from, and
Mm.
where your value is found, where your worth is found. It's something we want to teach to our children too. So yeah, I just,
Mhm.
I don't know if that's like a very like practical answer, but
No, that's super helpful. Yeah. Uh-huh. And when it comes to online too, it's extremely easy to compare. And I know there are a lot of women who are like, man, I would love to be living like this incredibly healthy, like fully crunchy, whatever you want to call it, life, but I just don't feel like I can afford it. And in
Mhm.
some ways, there can, even be a sense of jealousy, or even you can, as a woman, start to not like people who seem to have success. And it's obviously not the right focus. But how would you encourage a woman who's saying, like, I want to, I can't really afford to jump in and go full into living a more holistic, healthy way. But what are some practical steps I can take if I'm at the beginning of my journey, like rewinding Elizabeth several years ago?
Yeah.
How can they start? What are some swaps they can make? What are some things they can do to start more intentionally taking care of their family?
Yeah, I love that. It wasn't an overnight switch for us either. So don't compare your starting line to somebody's journey where they are. I don't say finish line, because we're still constantly learning. But if I were to look at myself, 10 years ago, like 2014 Elizabeth, we were completely, completely living differently. The things that we ate, the things that we did, um, and the things that we had in our home. And so it's just a gradual progression of learning, and you never stop learning.
Yeah.
But practically, I think uh, decreasing the toxic burden in your home is something that you do one product at a time. So when you know you have a cleaning product that you
Yeah.
use it up. You don't have to go take everything out of your cabinets and throw everything away. But if you use something up, look for a better alternative. A
Mhm.
lot of things, people say it's so expensive. A lot of things that I talk about that you can switch out are actually cheaper, because you can make them yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I used to use what is it? The counter spread. like Lysol, like the
Yeah.
spray, like the counter spray. We're like spraying all these toxic chemicals on our counters and then eating off of our, it's just, ugh. So I used to use that. And once I started researching ingredients, actually reading labels, that is a
Yeah.
huge thing. Read your ingredient labels. Um, I was like, that's terrible. And so I just literally, we didn't have a lot of money and I couldn't afford to like buy this whole new starter kit from Branch Basics or
Yes.
whatever brand it is that you're looking at. We couldn't afford to do that. And so I just literally like mixed some vinegar with a little bit of dish soap or like lemon essential oil. And that was my all purpose cleaner
Yeah.
for toilets. Like, the blue stuff that you spread around like I used to use that, but now I just use vinegar and citric
Mhm.
acid in my toilets
Mhm.
and it works way better for hard water anyway. Like it's
Mhm.
things like that you can practically switch out, but just take it one thing at a time. Candles was something I was a Yankee Candle girl. Like every year the sale, like my husband would go, me and my husband would go and like stock up on Yankee Candle and like
Yes.
my favorite scent was this Harvest blend. Anyway, we loved Yankee Candle, but like candles are terrible for your
Yeah.
health. And we know that like indoor air is more polluted than outdoor air.
Yeah.
And so just eliminating candles, like that is something that you can do, or finding a cleaner alternative, candles that are made with beeswax or something. So just little things like that you can swap out over time. Health products, things that you can make yourself, just research. And literally a lot of my learning came from like, how do you treat XYZ naturally, or how do you make a natural version of whatever, and so,
Exactly.
and just experiment.
I know I have referenced particularly your Instagram story highlights and sent them to like a million people for every random question that comes up. And there are so many helpful resources. And it's so true. Like
Yeah.
the amount of times I have not needed to run to the pediatrician or whatever because I'm like, oh, go to your story highlights. Like, how do you naturally? And it's like half the time it's stuff I just have in my house, like
Yeah.
grinding up garlic and mixing it with, coconut oil, stuff I literally have around that I'm using to naturally help my family. And I think knowledge and wisdom and really so much of it is like getting back to literally like what God has given us in this earth, rather
Yeah.
than going to the store and buying something. So much of it, it's like from the foods we eat to the things we can use to help heal our family. It's been such a transition for me. And I'm very much still on the journey myself. But I know like for me, it was my own health issues with migraines and stuff like that I got to a breaking point where I was just completely burnt out, went through multiple miscarriages, just like something is so off in my body. And sometimes it's those hardships or those valleys that actually kind of force us to start to make changes. And it's not
Yeah.
just with the physical, but also with the spiritual and like the mental and the emotional as well. Okay, you
Absolutely. And
mentioned, yeah,
so
go ahead.
something you said reminded me, a lot of it, when I mentioned the toxic burden, a lot of it is not adding things, it's taking away
Yes.
things. So food is a huge part of like healing, especially with like autoimmune disease and removing stress as much as possible. But like food is another thing that it's people like to say like, I grew up doing this and I'm fine.
Yeah.
I turned out fine. We're not living in the same day and age that we grew up in, and food is so different now. And so just learning to make things at home, in your kitchen, like we'll eat out on occasion, but like most of our meals are made at home and we know what's going into them. We can control the ingredients. We don't, we try and like avoid a ton of like packaged food.
Yeah.
So like making fresh food, making your own bread, making, sauerkraut, like things like this that are so healing for your gut, because a lot of health begins in the gut.
Mm.
And I struggled with migraines too, so I can like solidarity you on that, because they are life altering and migraines don't care. Like I remember thinking, I'm so scared I'm going to get a migraine on my wedding.
Oh my gosh, that
On
was
my
my exact fear. That was
because
literally my lifelong fear.
because it literally would affect your
Yes.
day, your whole day. And migraines, they don't discriminate days. And so, you know being able to figure out things that were triggering my migraines,
Mm.
and be able to handle them if I did
Yeah.
get them. And I get them I still get them because a lot of it is hormonal, but I get them way less than I
Yes.
used to. So
Same. Mhm.
Yeah.
You mentioned reducing stress. What did you mean by that?
Um, I think a lot of our stress that we experience as moms, I'll speak to moms
Yeah,
particularly because I know that men have their own forms of stress that
right.
come with work and being the leaders of the house. So yeah, I want to speak into moms for
Yeah.
reducing stress. I I think, and I'm saying this as somebody that can work on this always, is your kids aren't stressing you out, your distractions are stressing you out. And so
Amen.
we live in this society. We're the first parents to grow up that had social media.
Yes.
And it is and just this constant distraction of like constantly needing to be like picking up our phone and seeing what's going on and being plugged in. And so reducing your stress is a lot of like just reducing your distractions throughout the day because I guarantee if I didn't have this around, I would be so much less stressed out.
Mhm.
And so there's things that you can do to obviously
For
like
sure.
decrease your distractions. Don't have everything come to your phone as a notification or set,
Mhm.
time limits and different things like that. But I think that would be like my biggest
Yeah.
tip. And then just being just being able to be present, and whatever it is that you're doing, be all there
Yeah.
instead of being halfway there.
Mhm. My husband and I are reading 2 books that just came out, and the concepts of them are amazing. One's called Bad Therapy by Abigail Shrier, and then the other one is called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. They're speaking more in terms of kids and the impact of all of this technology and just over therapize therapy with all of that. But my husband and I, as we're reading these, we're like really thinking about ourselves so much, because obviously we're
Hmm.
raising kids, but I've just been so convicted of that lately of wow, exactly what you said. Like so much of my stress and frustration in the moment, especially when I just feel like I'm overstimulated or the kids, I realize like it's not them. It's like my distraction and my literal
Yeah.
mental load of being so overloaded with information, overloaded with like stuff coming at me that I'm just like, lashing out at them and setting really good boundaries. And my husband and I really making some steps forward for ourselves in that way with our technology has literally been life changing for me. And just like that one practical change has like my ability to just be more present and love my
Yeah.
kids and be more, even my marriage, like everything has changed as a result of that. So when you said that, I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, but I feel like we've
Well,
been tricked into like, we have to have this, we have to, and it's like, no, it's like the great trick of our generation. Like we don't
yeah.
have to. So when it comes to your shop, Purely Parsons, what are like the best sellers? What are the things that people, if they're like, okay, I want to kind of treat myself or I want to get a product that I know is just very intentional and loved by a family. You're obviously way further on this journey of just living more holistically and just just striving to take care of the body that God has given you for you and your family. So if they could buy 1 or 2 products from your shop, where would you direct them to?
I think our elderberry kits are like our most popular because that's where it
Okay.
all started. And those are things that you can take into your home and make yourself and learn a new skill. So I think that's huge. It's like a good immune booster, especially for the fall and
Yeah.
winter season. One product that is super popular and everybody raves about is our hair serum. So it's like a hair oil. So it just helps with like scalp health and hair growth. I've had way less like postpartum hair loss this time around with our hair oil, and it's every single ingredient you can recognize it. It's
Yes.
organic. And then we also have a facial serum that is, I think a lot of skincare out there is very, very greenwashed.
Yeah.
Um, and like chemical based, like they say, what is
Mhm.
the popular like terms are like vegan or
Yeah.
plant based, which can mean a lot of different things based off of what company
Mhm.
you're looking at. But um, our skincare is just so clean. You can
Yes.
recognize every single ingredient. Again, organic. And I think the other thing that we have that's kind of unique is fragrances
Yes.
that are all completely natural. They're essential oil based, and we're actually working to come out with a new product that is kind of like around the fragrance line that we're super excited about. But our essential oil rollers, I didn't want to be spraying like chemicals on my
Mhm.
on my body, and then being around my kids and holding
For
them and
sure.
snuggling them, and these fragrances that last like all day long.
Yeah.
That's not normal. Like
For
that's
sure.
that's not a good thing that
Yeah.
your perfume can be smelled from like 10 feet away.
Yes, well, and I will vouch for those. My husband and I, we both got those. So what's the male fragrance that
So it's not, so we did the kind of like a rebranding. It's not
Okay.
technically a male fragrance anymore, but it's Steadfast is like our
Yeah.
more piney, like it's got,
Yeah.
I can't remember what essential oil in it. I think it's like a fir, like a
Okay.
Siberian fir. So it's more like woodsy. And then we've got a one called Virtuous that is
Yes.
from Proverbs 31, and that is like a very floral one. And then we've got like a beachy one that's called By the Sea.
Yes.
So
Okay, so we
yeah,
have the steadfast one and then the virtuous one,
okay,
and we both love them. And I will just say, like, it's been my husband loves when I wear perfume, but I was telling him, I'm like, babe, the cologne and the perfume, it's like so bad for us, And like, especially
yeah,
as someone who gets migraines, it's like, I don't want to just be squirting this stuff
mhm,
on me, like literally
yeah.
breathing it in. And your fragrances have been amazing. Like, that's all we've used now for like the past 6 months specifically. And
Oh
they
my
smell so
goodness,
good.
I
And my
love
husband
that.
loves the smell. Like, whenever I wear it, he's like commenting, like, ooh, I love this smell. So even when we're
That's
like not
amazing.
going out or we're just going to be in for the night, like a little date night in or whatever, I can just like put it on because I know
Yeah,
it's something that actually my body, it's like good for me and I can work with my body, and I'm not just having to like, okay, let me wear a little bit of perfume and because I know it's so terrible. So that is such a great investment and it lasts forever. Like, I am
it
so
does.
shocked how long the fragrance lasts. Like, we literally got these for Christmas and it's been like so many months now and I wear mine all the time and I still have a bunch left. So I'm like, how is this still like going? So
I love
that's been
it.
a huge product and we will
Oh,
definitely restock on those. And I know you've released so many more things since then. So I'm like, I need to go
hmm
onto your website. The hair, obviously, I have like no hair and you have all the hair. And I've been telling my husband, I'm like, I really like, I know that, I know I don't do anything with my hair and then I complain about how it's like non-existent, And so you were talking about the scalp and I'm like, I need to get that. I need to be more intentional. So I
that's
will get that
amazing.
and start using it and then, we can, do an update in about a year and see
Okay.
how the hair flow is going.
We'll send you one. I'll text you after the meeting. But stay tuned for our fragrances because we're
Oh,
doing some really fun things with those that will be different than the rollers, but like
ooh,
so good. Just
I'm
so good.
excited. So
I'm excited.
purelyparsons.com, right?
Curlyparsons.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, head on over there, y'all. And I just like the idea of, rather than for me, I know it's so easy to just like go on Amazon and half the time our
hmm
money, in my opinion, is going to like terrible places. And so I just love the idea of shopping small and actually supporting like families and businesses and people who actually are pouring their heart and like love into these products and they actually care about you and that the products you're getting are actually good for you and beneficial and not like slowly killing you. So I would just encourage you to go over to Purely Parsons. And then obviously on Instagram, it's at Purely Parsons,
At
right?
Purely Parsons. And we have a shop page too, but it's in my bio that you can look at.
Perfect. Yeah.
So
And again, the story highlights are everything. So if you have any questions, go to her story highlights. I'm telling you, I have referenced them and sent them out so many times and they will be so helpful and just empowering as a mom and as a woman of just like being able to kind of say, hey, I actually know how to handle this situation with my kid, or here are some
yeah.
steps that I can take. So thank you, Elizabeth, just for being here and just all the work you do pouring into your, you give away so many free resources, and it's just amazing. And it's been such a benefit in my life. So thank you. And thank you for being on the Girl Defined show. I'm excited for everyone to connect with you. And we'll get you off of here so you can get back to your wonderful family. And I've got one here too. They're like, okay, it's been 40 minutes. Let's go.
All
Thank you, Elizabeth.
right. Thanks, Bethany.